Welcome to Massive Passive Cash Flow, the podcast that guides professionals to financial prosperity. Join our community and let's start building your wealth. Here's your host, Gary Wilson.
Hey there, and welcome back to the Massive Passive Cash Flow podcast. This is Gary Wilson, your host. Glad to have you back. We got a great guest today, Alicia Reinhard. We'll introduce her in just a moment, but if I could and ask you to please go and subscribe to the webinar if you haven't already done so. It's on like 30 different channels, Stitcher, iTunes, iHeartRadio, and you can do downloads whenever you want. You don't have to just do it when you hear the podcast. We're being downloaded in 50 plus countries now, so that's really nice, mostly in the US and then followed by Canada. If you are an investor or you like to invest, we have some really good news. Go to the website, realestatewithgarywilson.com. Click on members area, and then once you're in there on the right-hand side, you can go in for free for 30 days, and you get all the access that everybody gets who goes in on the left-hand side, right? I mean, books, 300 at least webinar recordings on different subjects, training material, websites for resources. Just grab it, treat it like it's Christmas, and get all you can get for free. In any case, without further ado, let me introduce Alicia. Alicia, thank you very much, first off, for being here.
And thank you, Gary. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we're glad to have you. You got a great subject to cover. And if you wouldn't mind, though, before we jump into that, would you mind giving people a little bit of background on yourself? Just paint them a beautiful Idaho picture with Alicia in it, you know?
I love it. I love it. Well, I've been in the real estate industry for 20 years. And have a pretty dynamic background, title, escrow, tax-deferred exchanges, real estate development, and I'm the vice president of business development for Title Pike, and we're solving wire fraud. So I'm excited to kind of talk about that as it pertains to real estate as a whole.
Awesome. Well, I definitely want to jump in on that. So you've got a great background because almost everybody listening is an entrepreneur, owns a business, is a professional, and likes to invest in real estate. And of course, wire fraud is a big issue. And the fact that I used to own a title company, so I mean, this is music to my ears. So let's go ahead and jump in. What Title Pike? Can you describe to us what actually that is, and what does that mean to people who are listening?
Yeah, so Title Pike was built for the real estate industry. So Title Pike can and should be applied to any real estate transaction. So residential, commercial, even a refinance. So designed specifically for the real estate industry, and it's the first neutral collaboration platform. So we kind of put ourselves into our own column. There's other great platforms out there, but typically you would need to have a company would need to subsidize the account for the users to come into it. And what makes Title Pike unique is it's a cloud-based service platform, and we use multiple layers of authentication and encryption, just like many of the big box banking institutions would do, putting those in place, but it protects all information, communication, personal information, more importantly, wiring instructions, funding instructions, those kinds of things. Everything is encrypted in rest and in transit. So we don't come into play until there's an accepted offer. So once you have an accepted contract, that meeting of the minds, it's uploaded through Title Pike, and all parties, instead of pushing the information out, everyone accesses the information. So all the parties are invited into the platform, and that's where all of the secure collaboration takes place.
Wow. So this is like in other words, it sounds like, is it more like a hub?
It's a hub. It's perfect. Perfect description, yeah. Gary.
Oh, this is awesome. So in other words, all the parties related to the transaction can come through a portal, right, and access. Okay, this is the first I heard this, and I didn't realize you really do have your own category. So this is awesome.
We have our own category. And we're based out of here in Boise, Idaho. Okay. And it's and Boise is we're the Treasure Valley in the Gem State, and we just like to joke that we're no longer a secret. So we've got our market shifting at a fast pace our industry as a whole, I think, change is the one thing that's consistent, right? We're constantly pivoting and evolving because market shifts, and we have to be nimble and relevant. And one area that really hasn't evolved as it should is the communicating through email. We need to kind of move away from that. And we're not suggesting, there's no place for email. We're saying when you're dealing with private information, so it needs to be operated and conducted through a secure platform, ensuring that we're removing the human error. We want to know who we're dealing with, because when you have an email address, a typo can change where that email is going. And I use Gmail in my business, and Gmail, I'm sure you're using an email platform in your business. And there's still a place for that. So we're not saying get rid of email, but once you've got an accepted contract, uploading it to titlepipe.com, it takes about 90 seconds to do that. And I'll can even send you some follow-up information, Gary, just, people can access various links. So dependent on their role, if they're a buyer or a seller, a title company, a lender, a real estate agent, we have different engagement pages for each of those to speak specifically to that audience and give them some tools.
Okay, awesome. So I'm just trying to imagine this. This is going back, but I actually have a degree in computer science, but it was from 1985, and back then we used blocks of granite and chisels and hammers. That's how we worked. But we didn't have anything like this. So I'm imagining in my mind, and Brad, I was in banking for years, and then of course, I own companies, including a title company. So with this hub, like, and you're coming through a portal, people can communicate via email, but in there could be a link to the hub, I guess, the title pipe, where they have access credentials, and then inside there, the data is protected because it's inside that protected, like a cocoon.
Correct.
And if data needs to be transferred, is there data encryption also? I'm just, if you don't mind, I apologize, I'm getting too technical.
Yes, no. So once you have the accepted offer, you upload that to titlepipe.com and invite each user into the platform. So you're not going to need, everyone's on a need to know basis. And when I have an accepted offer, let's say I'm representing the buyer, and I know my buyer's information, I know my information, and I know the agent on the other side that I'm working with and the escrow officer. Okay, so I'm just going to simply invite the participants in that I know, right? So each come in, everyone claims their profile, and an escrow officer may have an escrow team, right? There may be a funding assistant or an escrow assistant. Teams are all run a little bit differently. So the escrow officer would be responsible for inviting her team in. So it's a collection of all of the data and bringing all the participants together and giving that secure platform to communicate. It's got a whole bookmarks that you can check in and see what happened. Like, oh, these two things happened since I was in here last. And I can control my preference. So when a title commitment, let's just say, is available for viewing, all parties to the transaction are instantly notified on that. Okay. I, as a real estate agent, each participant can control their communication style. So I prefer a text over an email when I'm dealing with business. A text is more immediate for me. It's going to prompt me to take action and just know that something's been done, where email kind of can get bogged down a little bit. So I set all of my milestones as things are happening to just get me to a text message. So that text pings my phone and then gives me that encrypted link. So I can open up the transaction, view whatever document may be in there, make whatever notes or tasks that are being asked of me. And all of those are date stamped. So it's an accounting, it's a great accountability tool just to know who's doing what, and removes the pleasantries that come along with email. Although it's nice to acknowledge one another, Gary, you're the best. Thanks for sending that over. No, you're the best, Alicia. Anytime, that back and forth is, it's nice, but it's not necessary.
Right.
And so just being able to focus on business and give ourselves permission to remove some of those niceties and just stick to the tasks at hand, it makes us more efficient. And it still doesn't replace all communication with my client. I'm still going to call and ask if there's any questions that they have on that title commitment and go through those pieces. But it's absolutely another tool. Like you said, it's a cocoon around the transaction. That was a great description of it. Yeah.
Well, thanks. Once a year, I come up with a good one. Maybe that was my one for sure. But I'll tell you what, this is, for everybody listening here, hopefully now your radars are turned on and take some notes, because if you're an agent, and there's a lot of agent, listening to the podcast, you're in title, you're in lending, there's so many people related to a real estate transaction. And the bigger the transaction, and commercial particularly, the more people involved. My gosh. So in any case, in the consumers, you should make sure you mention this to your agents. And by the way, Alicia, share stuff with me when we're done. But let's make sure we hang on another minute or two. But ironically, the team of agents I referred to earlier, the ones I own and run that team, we're right now in 27 states. We just started last year. And it's from what I can tell.
Well done.
Yeah, it's not an independent brokerage. We're inside another brokerage, but we get to operate a national team like a network. And we're in 1 year, we're in 27 states, and we work with a lot of investors. And this is the kind of stuff they want to hear and like to hear, because they're in different states. They're not, and they don't have the patience sometimes for the slow, email, things like that, and all the niceties. They just, it's business. And, there's an old saying, we'll all like each other more when we're making money. So once the deal's done, then you can go out and have coffee or a beer or whatever.
Yeah, well, and I like, Gary, operating in 26 different states, your investors, you probably have investors in some of, that have carryover in many markets. And so the beauty of Title Pipe is it's coast to coast. So it's one central location. So, let's say you're, representing one investor in Pennsylvania, and he's also investing in, Florida and Texas. And, you've got maybe other networks there that you're helping facilitate that. Or, however that may work, the investor has one spot where he can view all of his transactions regardless of the state. And that streamlines business in a major, major way as well.
Yep. And there's a lot of situations too where investors are not using lenders. It's cash, So a lot of lenders, I can see that right now they're probably, salivating and think this is ideal, because they're the ones, when it comes to wire fraud, mostly on the hook of the lenders, So so for the investors listening here, if you're doing cash deals, you pay attention at the end, and we're going to give you the website and contact information. And some of the deals are quite large. We have a few right now, 166 million, 60 million, 40 million, 250 million, and that's not every single transaction. That's just a handful that we have that there's a lot more at risk. Most of ours are normal, traditional. We do a lot of single family homes, a lot of, 4-unit buildings, 10-unit buildings, strip malls, storage facilities, smaller transactions. But to me, the bigger the deal, the bigger the risk, and you can't take anything for granted. You can't take risk. No,
well, we need to minimize risks, right? And so it's my role as a realtor is to manage the success of the transaction, and 95% of wire fraud incidents are human error. 95%. Okay, that's a staggering statistic. That it's human error that is the root cause of that. So removing that, as a real estate professional, lending professional, title company, we are in flow of this business all time. So it really comes firsthand that we're paying closer attention, and reading between the lines and, adding, some of the best practices right now are adding a disclaimer on your email address, just to kind of slow down and call and verify. And that's great, but it still doesn't remove the human error. And so going to a neutral hub to access the information where everything's encrypted, your wiring instructions all there, dealing with investors that are paying cash, oftentimes don't even need wet signatures at the title company, right? So they can just sign. We are built with an open API. So we play well in the sandbox with all other tech stacks. That's a new buzzword. All companies have their tech stack. And so we integrate really, really well, but we are already have an integration with DocuSign. So that makes it really easy when you've got a cash investor that is, not required to physically go in per se, but that risk of wiring money is still, like you said, it's still a risk. That it eliminates it altogether. So that peace of mind just really strengthens our position, and operating from a position of power feels great.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, you're covering a lot of ground here. One thing I was thinking of is some of the listeners, they're probably curious what actually is wire, like how does it happen? What happens when it does happen? Because they've all seen in the emails that they've done closings, or mainly realtors. Realtors are famous for having this in their signature line now. If you're ever solicited directly by us regarding wire transfer, please disregard blah 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 blah. I can't remember the exact. You probably know what I'm talking about.
Right.
But describe. Let's go back to a grade school. Because a lot of our listeners they're wanting to invest or new to it, and maybe they bought their own home 10 years ago. And this has all become a big issue in the last several years. It may have been a problem before, but now it's like everybody's on guard. Would you mind kind of walking through a typical scenario, like how it actually, what mistake might occur, say like in emails, and what happens after that? How does somebody take something like a mistaken email and turn it into them being able to get money for
yeah. Well, the biggest thing is using email. It's not protected, so it's safe to say that our emails are being monitored. They're being read. They're being combed through, and it's all happening behind the scenes, right? So we don't know that somebody's in there reading it, but they call it spear phishing. So I feel like cyber criminals are also entrepreneurs in their own right and looking to work for their highest and best use, which makes real estate transactions an ongoing target because of all of the zeros attached to the way that we're doing business. It's high payoff, right? So the threat to the real estate industry is not going to go away. I mean, right now it's a $4 billion a year problem and is preventable. It is preventable, and having the neutral platform, where there's nothing to download, it's all web based. It just removes the excuse to even have it, right? So, yeah. But on a traditional transaction, when I have an accepted offer in the past, when we have an accepted offer, we're just emailing that over to the title and escrow company and or attorney, just depending if we're in an abstract state or. But we're emailing that, and then they're receiving that. And a number of title companies and lenders are working off an encryption on their side. But what happens when it goes to, Joe Schmo, the buyer or seller, that they're not working off a secure platform? So there's fractures in some of the systems that are currently in place with just counting on email. And we have to take control over that. As an investor, we need to take control over that. As a real estate agent, we need to take control. Everyone needs to this is everybody's job. So this is not, don't wait for somebody else to do this. You need to take these measures and put it in place. And, taking the pledge to say, I'm migrating away from email it's a bold statement. It's oftentimes I look at agents and I think that they panic with me suggesting we're migrating away from email because it's not hard, it's just new. And so we have to warm up to this conversation, and we need to keep it right on the surface level. We need to keep revisiting some of these basics because it's a fast moving train, and that human error is alive and well, and cyber attacks are banking on it. So they're looking for those opportunities in those emails, or, how many times is it that, we may be back and forth on an email and then somebody else needs to know it and we forward, perhaps somebody's forwarding something and there's private information in there. In states like California, it's against the law to have a certain combination of personal information in and not encrypted. It's against the law. I mean, it's a finable offense.
Wow. So really, at the end of the day, I mean, somebody could be innocently emailing somebody else and have personal information in there, and if somebody's checking them out at the right time, a hacker happens to be on at that time checking them, that's where they're grabbing the information. And from there, I mean, I guess can they go and set up accounts in that other person's name? Fortunately, I've never experienced this.
Yeah. Well, reading. So, I mean, we've had wire fraud happen here in our own backyard. And oftentimes it's a little nuanced, if it's maybe it's a familiar title company name, but you might look for double A's or something, right? Like if it was a certain company where they might be just doubling a letter or something like that, but they're mimicking that trusted source, and they're good at it. And when you're just looking at an email for what it is and the message, and it appears to have mentions of the parties involved, and they know that the money is going to be arriving on Friday. These are all key pieces that spear phishing, that they're looking for those pieces, and it makes it really easy to send something and say, hey, I know we said we weren't going to do that, but something has changed last minute. Here are the instructions. We're all set for funding and reporting tomorrow. So, the cyber attacks they're not, it's not going to be a scary, egregious email that's coming across to you or something that you're accidentally clicking on. They're a friend of the fort, right? They're taking over a trusted source in that. And it makes it easy to think that this makes sense. I'm familiar with these names. This is the company I'm working with. And there's no recourse, Gary. So when money is sent, there is no recourse. And that is why I am so passionate about Title Pipe and helping get that word out there, because we don't need to pay a ton of money to compete in this space. We can be safe right now, today, with no new technology to purchase or acquire. So Title Pipe, just to kind of talk about how we make money off of it. So Title Pipe is free to all industry professionals. Okay. So the real estate agent, the title company, the lender, no charge. Okay. There's a $50 charge to the buyer and seller upon a successful close of escrow. If it doesn't close, there's no fee. That's it. I mean, it's so simple, so simple. Yeah. $50 at closing. If it doesn't close, there's no fee. Upon a successful closing, your investors, your clients can access those documents for 7 years through an encrypted site for 7 years. So as a real estate agent or as a broker, it's a compliance dream, right? Because as a broker here in the state of Idaho, my broker is required to hold all documents for 3 years. As an independent contractor at that firm, I'm required by our state to hold our documents for 5 years. Okay. So, statute of limitations is 7 years. So we hold it for 7 years to meet that full 7 year stretch. But being able to access those documents, because, we all get, a thumb drive or a hard copy at the close of escrow. But when it comes down to it, we need that information. Typically, we're calling our agent back again or the title company to say, I don't know where that form is. I need it for taxes now. Can you send it back over to me? It really is a nice, consistent, predictive process when it's just in encrypted and safe keepings, and you can access it whenever you need it. That is critical. I know for me personally, now granted, I've owned hundreds of properties over the years, but I've had a number of situations where somebody would call, years later and say, hey, boy, Gary, we hope you have this document because we're trying to sell the property ourselves now and something popped up or whatever.
it's happened, a good handful of times. In most cases, I had what they needed, but there was one or two where I didn't because it was way too long ago. And after 7 years, in fact, I just did a big purge. It sounds crazy. I just got rid of 24 boxes of documents about 2 weeks ago.
Yes.
Old things. And so having this stuff readily available like that on an encrypted, protected system, that's pretty awesome. And the funny thing is, I'm thinking back now, even before all the technology we had these, in the old days when we did closings, I got started before email. I was in the late 80s.
I remember before email.
Yeah. And then when email came along, I think we were all just so naively moving forward. I can remember a lot of closings, we were emailing stuff back and forth, man, And so I think all of this really came about indirectly, but with the onset of email. And that's probably the nexus. And then, of course, wherever there's opportunity for the good of the world, there's opportunity for, unfortunately, the bad of the world too.
Right.
And so here we are. So where do you see this going? The future of transactions? I mean, for me personally, I haven't been to an actual physical closing in years. We do everything electronically anymore. Right? It's not necessary. But do you see that trend? Like, do you have any insight or foresight or predictions, I guess, as far as where this is going?
Yeah, I was going to say it's a bold prediction, but I'm confident that there's going to come a time in the near future where it will be mandated that we as an industry are not allowed to communicate private information, transactional data through email, period, end dot. I'm bold in that prediction, but I'm confident it's coming and it's right around the corner. So we're working with NAR at becoming a national member benefit, just because that's we need to get tangible tools out to brokers, out to all industry partners to recognize that you don't need to have this huge IT expense, to start working off of a secure platform. And it needs to be one of those non-negotiables. This is just something and this is all opt-in right now. So we're working with brokers all over the country. We're working with MLSs on integrating and all of those kinds of ways to make it easy, because we get it. This is not difficult, but it's new. And we're all creatures of habit. So, I just would encourage everybody to keep an open mind. Yeah. And when it comes to money and our clients' privacy, make it a priority and make your own best practices. Don't wait for this to be required. Right. Don't wait. We believe in being part of the prevention, not the cure. Don't wait for this to happen. Something just devastating, like wire fraud. I mean, can you imagine, even $500,000 going and not having any recourse to it? And it makes you sick to your stomach. I mean, it really does. Yeah. And also knowing that there's systems there right at our fingertips that this is preventable. So let's not put our heads in the sand. Let's not wait for something devastating to happen. And let's be proactive. Let's be part of the prevention.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I'm thinking of the $4 billion. It's not like an impersonal thing. It's very personal. That's $4 billion that in the end of the day, some consumer did not receive, and somebody lost that money. Could be 100,000 here, 300,000 there. That's a big deal, So, and with no recourse.
That's a big deal.
Yeah. So in any case, well, I tell you what, this has been pretty fascinating. There's so many things we could probably talk about too, like,
we could go on and on, Gary.
But what I think I'd like to do is have you back on again, because what you're doing, you do. My opinion is you have your own category, and eventually there'll be other people trying to. This happened to me, but the team I have is sort of a unique thing. It's a national team that focuses on investors, for example, and I've heard of other people saying we're going to just copy that because nobody else is doing it, and that's less competition, all that kind of stuff. But it's always good to be first. Nobody can ever take that away from you. And chances are, you're going to be light years ahead of anybody else. And I'd like to, help you achieve that. And so if I can do that, it absolutely let me know. And so I do want to have you back on. I don't know if you have a podcast yourself. I'm happy to be a guest on that. If you want to ever do that, I know a lot of people think about, I'll do that the next thing. But going forward, what's the best advice, or what advice can you give everybody listening who's thinking, man, how much risk am I really at? And how do I take advantage of this? How do I find the system, encourage my agent to do this? I mean, what's the next best steps for these guys,
Yeah, I would say if to like I said, keep it right on the surface and ask those questions. And it's not just enough to call and verify. Let's remove the human error altogether and get the right parties, the right information at the right time. It's crucial.
Okay, I'm gonna just make a note here, a few notes, because I know if I write it down, it'll become real, and if I don't, I'll remember it when I'm either in the car or in the shower. So, is there a website, an online, like a brochure portal? Because some people are more analytical; they want to read all about it first. Some people just they're social butterflies; they just want to talk to somebody. So, how can they get reach out to you?
Absolutely. Yeah. Titlepipe.com. So super simple. Titlepipe.com. And Gary, what I'll do is I'll send you our agent corner page, our escrow page, and audience specific pages that are going to have tools and resources to help an industry professional craft the narrative. We understand when we're dealing with a new topic, the narrative is really important. And so we've helped craft that. So you don't have to think about how am I going to explain this, or how do I help my consumer understand the importance of this. So we've taken the guesswork out of that. And so I'll get those tools over to you too, and share them as you see fit, because I love this conversation. I'm passionate about the real estate industry as a whole, and I appreciate what you're doing out there to help provide a platform to bring these important alliances together, because each one is very critical and important, and we need to make sure that we have these trusted partners that we can count on. Right.
Well, I appreciate that, and I feel the same way. There's a lot of good people in this business, and I sometimes I wish, in the world of real estate brokerage, as an industry, we would raise our requirements to get in, raise the standard, the entry standards, make it a college degree. I know that a lot of people are saying, why? Please don't do that, because let's face it, some states you can take 60 hours of class, take an exam, and you're dealing with people's lives, So, but in any case, one thing I'll tell you, this is, and for everybody listening, this is for you too. We're creating a hub ourselves, a portal for access to funds. Not necessarily banking funds, but there's an entire world of people out there that have cash value inside their life insurance policies. And this has become a big deal in the last couple of years. We know in a recession, the traditional capital markets are going to start to tighten up. Well, people who are, approaching retirement age or in retirement age have these life insurance policies with big cash value. So what we're doing is we're creating a hub where the people with the policies can access the hub through their own secured portal. And then the investors that have transactions, they're trying to, buy a 10-plex or flip a home or something. They have a project they need funding for, and they can submit their project. And then the investors could, look at the projects and decide, vote with their dollars and say, I'll fund 10% of that, or I'll fund the whole thing on this one. But one of the other portals is this business of the title work, where all the money changes hands. And your portal, this is an exact match. This is exactly the kind of thing we've been looking for to complete that picture. So we definitely need to stay in touch on that. And I think a lot of listeners are thinking, yeah, please stay in touch on that.
Well, we are an open book, and we're excited to help participate. So, if anyone out there has questions or whatever, I'll send you our contact information. And we're pick up the phone. We'd love to have a conversation. And it's and like I said, we play well in the sandbox. So we're designed with integration in mind.
Yeah, you're actually everybody's friend. There's all you're playing. There's nobody that's gonna. It's like an exact mathematical science. The money's going from point A to point B, And the way you've got it designed, it's pretty much foolproof. So
Yes.
this is pretty awesome. And I think agents will love you, consumers will love you, lenders will love you, the title companies themselves will love you. So, and the fact that you have this unique, category, it doesn't matter where they are. They could be in any lending company, any title company, any brokerage company, anywhere in the country,
Correct.
So this is awesome. So
Doesn't get any more neutral than that.
that's it, man. Yeah. You're like Switzerland,
Right?
So that's cool. I'm congratulate you too, by the way, for having seeing this and pursuing and developing this vision. I love entrepreneurs, and I think this is truly one of the great success stories. So thank you for.
Thank you, Gary. Thank you. We'll do this again.
Absolutely. And for everybody listening, please remember titlepike.com. Go check it out. All right. Look up Alicia. Also, when you're online, go to realestatewithgarywilson.com. And we're developing another portal for our agents, sort of like a profile page. Right now, you have to go in 3 layers deep to find these agents. But what's so important is the volume of transactions is at all-time high. More investors are trading properties because they hear about 1031 exchange potentially being impacted, capital gains going up. So this is extremely active, and it's so important that you have agents that are trained to work with you. These agents are certified investor agents. They're not traditional agents. Okay, they understand how to identify, analyze, and negotiate deals, properties, often online. Okay, so enough of that. As you can see, we're wrapping this up, and I have one more favor to ask you.
Yes.
When you finish listening to this interview with Alicia, please give us a review, because Alicia could use it. I could use it. It's easy to just turn the channel. I get that, but pass it on, because that's how the business works. And we're glad to provide you all this incredible, valuable content. So if you could do that review, we really appreciate you for doing that. In the meantime, God bless you and your families, and Alicia, you too. And thanks again for being on.
Thanks, Gary.
Okay, take care, guys. We'll see you on the next Massive Passive Cash Flow podcast.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Massive Passive Cash Flow. Be sure to go to realestatewithgarywilson.com to join our community and start building wealth today.